Today, I want to talk about something we all do, even if we don't want to admit it. Judging people. I know a lot of people will be like, I love judging people. And a lot more would be like, judging is evil. But we all do it to some extent or another. We've all had those moments where we were like, well, at least I'm not like them. Or what the hell were they thinking? Now, you probably know if you have said something along those lines that it gives you a little ego boost. It makes you feel a little bit better in the moment. It's a way to feel a tad superior to someone else, even for just a second. But here's what I've learned the hard way. That every time I judged someone else, I was quietly tearing myself down too. And so in this episode, we're going to dig into why judgment is never just about other people, how it chips away at your self-worth, and how to start flipping that habit before it eats you alive. Welcome to Your Worth Knowing. I'm on a mission to help you liberate yourself from toxic beliefs and external expectations. I want you to shake off that mean inner voice that tells you you're not enough, not successful enough, not productive enough, not lovable enough. Because the truth is that you're not broken. You've been conditioned to play small and not believe in yourself, to not believe you're worthy. I'm here to tell you that you don't have to anymore. Now, I like to think of judgment as a revolving door covered in mirrors. You step in thinking you're aiming your criticism outward at that friend, that stranger, that coworker, but the door spins and suddenly the reflection is back on you. You think you're saying, oh, they're such a mess. But what your brain actually hears is, what does that say about me? I know this because I used to be highly judgmental. Anytime I could take that superiority hit, I would. I'm doing better at life than they are. Or how stupid of them to go about it this way when my way is obviously better and I would have done that better. And for a few seconds, it always worked. I felt smarter, safer, and more in control. But underneath it all, I was reinforcing my own insecurities. My mask got heavier, and I was less and less myself. Because here's the truth. Judgment isn't really about the other person. It's a reflection of your own fears, limitations, and beliefs. Now, there are a few reasons why someone might be judgmental of someone else. One, they're insecure about themselves, and it feels good to judge someone else as it puts them on a pedestal, which is a phenomenon known as downward comparison. Secondly, they grew up in an environment where it was a daily occurrence, whether they were the ones being judged or they saw their parents or siblings judging someone else in front of them, right? So they've been programmed to continue that behavior. Gossiping plays a considerable role here. And third, they lack an understanding of the world at large and humans' intersectionality. So they can't fathom how or why others live, think, or act differently than they do. And this could be due to a religious upbringing or belief, or a lack of education that prevents one from thinking critically or with greater depth. I guess another reason could just be emotional immaturity, and I'll just leave it at that. But let's pause here, because there's a cousin in this family that we need to address. Comparison. Cousin comparison. If judgment is the loud, snarky sibling, comparison is the overthinking cousin, and both are dysfunctional. They need help. Comparison says, she's more successful than I am. And you know what? Sometimes that can lead to inspiration, right? It gets you going, it gets you moving into a similar direction. You're motivated, but it can also lead to despair and hopelessness. And then on the other side, judgment says she's only successful because she's manipulative. And that's defensive. It's dismissive and it's toxic. With comparison, at least there's a possibility of motivation. You know, you can look at someone else's success and think, hey, maybe I can get there too, with the right amount of effort, luck, education, so on and so forth. With judgment, though, there's no path forward. It's just a dead end that leaves you feeling smaller than before. Because every time you judge someone negatively, you take a stab at yourself. You're basically just stabbing yourself over and over and over. You unknowingly chip away at your self-worth by placing yourself above others, but still far below the idealized version of yourself you believe you should be. And the words should be are dangerous territory. Here's where psychology backs this up. There's something called the self-discrepancy theory, written by Higgins in 1987, if you want to look it up. And it says that the gap between who you are and who you think you should be creates distress. And so judging others widens this gap. Every time you knock someone else down, you're basically saying, hey, I'm above them, but I'm still below who I should be. It's a cheap shot, a quick high followed by a long hangover. So for example, there's no way that's her natural face. She must have had work done. She looked better before. On the surface, it seems like it's about her, but underneath that statement or that comment, maybe you're secretly wishing you had the courage or the money or the freedom to change your own appearance. Perhaps you're worried of the backlash if you did, and you're a little bit jealous that that person just went and did it without necessarily caring about what other people think. So you judge her to soothe yourself. But all it really does is reinforce that ugly gap between who you are and who you think you should be, or maybe who you want to be. And so ultimately, judging others does nothing to your self-esteem other than weaken it. And of course, if you really think about it, the worst judgment machine ever invented is social media. It's like dangling a candy bag in front of a kid. You know they're going to grab it. And so that same logic, that same behavior will apply to scrolling. Endless comparison, endless judgment at your fingertips. How crazy is that none of us really realize what it's doing to our brains? And so it's impossible not to feel like everyone else is doing better. Or on the flip side, to laugh at someone who screwed up, at someone whose relationship is falling apart, at someone's tragedy. A while back, if you are online, if you're in the social media world, a trend blew up. The very demure, very mindful trend by Jules LeBron.
You see how I do my makeup for work? Very demure, very mindful. I don't come to work with a green cut crease. I don't look like a clown when I go to work. I don't do too much. I'm very mindful while I'm at work. See how I look very presentable? The way I came to the interview is the way I go to the job. A lot of you girls go to the interview looking like Marge Simpson and go to the job looking like Patty and Selma. Not demure. I'm very modest. I'm very mindful. You see my shirt? Only a little chichi out, not my chocho. Be mindful of why they hired you. Here's your reality check, diva. What's the name you'd like me to make it out to?
It was so popular that the saying was trademarked by someone else, allowing them to capitalize on her idea, which, in itself, not demure, not mindful at all. While it may have started with good intentions, such as learning how to present yourself respectfully at work, which I'm not going to get into, but I also have issues with that, but I digress for now, that trend has blown out of proportion. Because whenever I hear someone say it, it reeks of judgment. Because if you think about it, if you're not demure, then you're doing things wrong. And I don't know about you, but I'm not going to take advice from a stranger in Nevada telling me that my behavior is unacceptable by their standards and that I need to check myself before I wreck myself. If I want to wreck myself, I will wreck myself. I can make my own judgment call. Thank you very much. And so that whole thing kind of pissed me off because the word demure means quiet and well-behaved. And I don't think I need to tell you that women are taught to be that way from the day we're born because it's safer, right? Don't be too much. Don't be too loud. Don't be too aggressive. Otherwise, you'll become a spinster because nobody likes a woman with a mouth and pink hair. And so being demure and mindful is often considered the best way to show up, as it can help us reach our goals. After all, how could anyone appreciate us if we're loud, colorful, and anti-establishment? But I'm not about to suppress my thoughts and feelings to appease people. I won't abide by someone else's etiquette or standards, and nor should you. Then there was another trend that popped up that had more potential, but again, it wasn't used in a proper context. And the trend was, we listen and we don't judge. It should have been used to highlight acceptance. Acceptance of unpopular opinions, different lifestyles, quirky and awkward things people do. Instead, it was about unveiling secrets and white lies between couples under the veil of acceptance.
We listen and we don't judge.
Sometimes I don't really have a headache. We listen and we
listen and we don't judge. Sometimes I go in the bathroom and hide and pretend to go to the bathroom when I hear the chaos in the house, just so you have to handle it, not me. I'm not judging. Not judging. No. We listen and we don't judge.
When sometimes I tell you I'm going to get a facial, but I'm really going to get Botox.
Sometimes I pretend to have to fix something downstairs just so I can play video games and have some peace.
It's hard not to judge, which is funny I'm saying that on this episode, and be resentful when your partner reveals that they hide in the bathroom so they don't have to deal with the kids, placing all the burden on you. So this was the type of content that was being generated under the umbrella of we listen and we don't judge. And so when you look at it, just in hindsight now, this trend was ripe for judgment as each individual publicly exposed how they were wronging their partner. It was hard not to think, well, that's really shitty of them to do that. But it's not just the trends on social media that are problematic as in normalizing the judgment of others. Simply being on social media and scrolling on it makes one more likely to judge more in the real world, through the simple act of comparison. Now, with all of that being said, if you're going to judge, do it the right way. All right, so let's talk about that. What's the alternative? Now, first of all, I'm not saying to get off of social media, even though you should get off of social media. Not like seriously, shut that shit down. It's damaging you, your relationships, the world around you, and me. I also need to get off social media. But again, I am a hypocrite because my content is there and I want people to watch it and absorb it. But, I myself find myself sucked into social media in ways that I shouldn't be, that are detrimental to my well-being. But if you are going to be on social media, as I am going to be on social media, it is essential to avoid comment sections, influencers, and topics that attract judgmental individuals, that make you question yourself constantly via comparison. So here's some rules I have for myself on how to navigate this landscape, right? So one, anything that's related to gossip, celebrity gossip, to name one, is blocked. I block those accounts. People, Vogue, any celebrities, blocked completely. I want nothing to do with that. Secondly, if you're a parent, stay away from groups and comment sections that judge other parents for how they're raising their kids. Anything that's like lifestyle related, where people are just showing off or bragging about how they're just doing things better, just block for your own sanity. And then thirdly, just don't buy into clickbait articles that trigger you on response. If you see something or you watch a video and you're triggered to the point where you want to say something and you're pissed off and you want to be righteous and you want to tell them off, that's a sign you need to remove yourself from that situation because it's unhealthy and you're going into judgmental mode. If I feel the need to be right or show off that I know better, I take that as a signal that I'm veering off course, okay? And listen, we're all human. We will always judge one another to some degree. But the point I want to drive home is to do less of it, to be mindful when you're being judgmental, to pick up on why you're judging someone and to talk yourself out of it. Because there's a right way to judge, and it has to do with reframing the initial judgment. Because you can judge positively. So for example, I used to judge people negatively who sang and danced in public. Anyone who had their headphones on, completely immersed in their world, singing and dancing on the side of the road publicly, I would say, that person has nothing going for them. Or only crazy, uneducated people would act like this. So yeah, I was basically putting myself on a pedestal, comparing myself to these individuals and thinking that I was better. Meanwhile, I was the simple-minded one who did not appreciate how full of life these people were, right? Once I reframed to judge them positively, I couldn't help but notice how amazing it was that they completely detached themselves from other people's expectations and opinions and could just be themselves unapologetically. And I was jealous of that. And I realized I was judging them negatively before because I was jealous I couldn't be like them. And so I needed to prop myself up in order to feel comfortable about myself. Instead of being like, you know what? I want to be more like them. How do I get to be like that? My preconceived notions of how someone should behave in public got in my way. And I only saw them through my traumatized lens, right? Because growing up in a judgmental household will do that to you. In my mind, I would never have dared to sing or dance because I would have been too scared of people judging me. I was projecting my judgmental self onto other people. Because if this is what I think of someone singing and dancing, then by default, if I do that, others will see and feel the same way about me. And God forbid, I don't want that. It was just that much easier to say, what a loser who doesn't have their life together, instead of addressing the fact that I couldn't walk out of my house without my quote unquote very demure, very mindful mask on. Because anything less than that was unacceptable. Otherwise, society wouldn't accept me. At least that's what I thought. That's what I told myself. But the joke was on me because they figured out life while I was suppressing myself and who I really wanted to be. So now, when I see someone dancing and singing in public, I smile and I appreciate them and I wish them the best. Because they remind me of what it means to live freely without apology. And I hope you will too, because that's the most powerful shift, to reframe your judgment into admiration when possible. So to summarize, the next time you catch yourself judging someone, ask yourself, what am I actually trying to achieve by thinking this, by saying this? And then flip it. Can you admire them instead of criticize them? Can you be curious instead of dismissive? Because when we stop judging, we start connecting. And when we start connecting, we finally start seeing people as simply that, people who are just living their lives. And that allows us to see ourselves. And I'll leave you with this. You're better off seeing the good things in people so that you can ultimately allow yourself to see the good in yourself. Because right now, it's probably obstructed by all the negative things you think about yourself. For example, I know I feel better when I take the time to compliment someone or listen to someone else's perspective and show them compassion instead of judgment. I know I feel better when I push myself out of my comfort zone to see things from someone else's perspective that I might disagree with initially. I know I feel better when I use my energy to further myself than to expend it on other people who don't even know I exist, that I don't know anything about or have no impact on my life whatsoever. I want to use my energy on me. So I hope that you can now see how judging others negatively affects your mental well-being. And equally important is becoming aware of when you do it, why you do it, and what prompts you to do it. Not that it's ever going to go away, but it can be significantly reduced. Try it out for a month, 2 months, and see how you feel in your mind and in your body. I promise you're going to feel so much better about yourself. All right. That was it for this week's episode. I'll see you here next week on the You're Worth Knowing podcast.